Well, hello and welcome to the Bottom Line Me podcast. I'm your host, Ann Allard. Today we have a really special episode focused on a topic that I believe is incredibly relevant to all of us, and that is resilience. In the often stressful world of real estate where deals can fall through at the last minute and market conditions can change overnight, resilience isn't just a nice to have, it's a must have. My guest today is Dione Joseph, National Commercial Underwriting Counsel here at Old Republic Title. Dione believes that resilience is a cornerstone skill in her role at Old Republic Title, and she's here to share some insights on how resilience can help us stay focused and productive, and how developing this skill will improve our overall well-being. Dione, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Thank you, Ann.
Great. Well, before we dive into our topic, could you take a couple of minutes and tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
My family moved to the Bronx, New York when I was 9 years old from the Caribbean country of Trinidad and Tobago. And I'd like to take a moment to just do a quick shout out to developers, appraisers, bankers, and real estate professionals in the Caribbean.
Awesome.
Thank you. My parents raised two hardworking daughters who are kind to others.
Awesome. Well, I know that just from my relationship with you over the last few years. So again, thanks so much for being here and sharing that with us. So let's start by talking about what resilience really is. Many people believe that you're either born with it or you're not. So let's start with having you share some thoughts on just that.
Well, resilience is in all humans. It's part of our DNA. Humanity would not have survived for 300,000 years through extreme environmental conditions like ice age, famine, and also war. As a metaphor, resilience is a tree in the wind. It bends, adapting to where the wind is blowing. As a person, it relates to adapting or coming to terms with an experience, even a traumatic one. As children, we were scared of new experiences, like the first day of school, but through repetition, we come to terms with the experience. Now, I would like to take a pause here and make a distinction regarding severe trauma. Severe trauma are life experiences that impact your core, and it relates to violence or abuse. You can't adapt like my other example. You may need to reach out to your network, like parents, close friends, or a mental health professional.
Yeah.
Absent severe trauma, one can adapt or pivot very quickly based on past experience or the development of their skill sets.
Interesting. That's worth giving some thought to. Thank you very much for sharing that. I think there are a lot of common myths, but here's another one that's probably a myth, and that is that resilience means that you just never give up. What do you say to that?
Well, resilient people often have a toolkit of skills like continuous learning, listening, leadership, organizational, and communicational skills they have developed and honed over time. And they lean into those to keep moving forward. It may seem like they never give up, but they can envision the finish line and so know what needs to be done because of their skill set. I often think of Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Love
And
that book.
one of the 7 habits is to begin with the end in mind. So let's do an example here. I've reviewed the commitment and I notice there's a riparian rights issue, or there's an old mortgage that should have been released 10 years ago that's clouding the title. I focus my initial energy on what may cause the deal to go sideways later. Resilient people look at the problem or the issue as the opportunity. So, what's my opportunity or added value to that customer? I fixed it before it became an issue, and I get thanked before the end of the deal. Now, will they remember that? I hope so, but it does make a difference. Now, what I love about this idea is that everyone can choose to hone their skills of continuous learning, listening, leadership, organization, and of course, communication to become more resilient.
Well, here's one more, and I think it's a big one. What do you say to resilient people don't feel emotions, that they're just kind of going through the steps, or they're not really emotional about what it is that they're about to do? Any thoughts on that?
Emotions are a soft skill like critical thinking, problem solving, relationship building, and resilience. In business, we call it emotional intelligence or the emotional quotient. Persistence, self reflection, self awareness are all needed for resilience, and those are EQ skills. Now, I just finished Colleen Stanley's book, Emotional Intelligence for Sales Success, for the Central Division ORT sales rally. And I love this quote from the book: IQ will get you to the corporate door. EQ will take you up the corporate ladder. EQ is the ability to understand what others need, to handle stress, and to basically be the person that others like to hang out with. Wow. Resilient people have learned to control their parasympathetic system. Now, that's a brain function by using the 5 breath method, for example. So you bring in a breath, hold for 2, let out for 7. And this keeps their mind free from anger and fear, which are the 2 most destructive emotions in leadership, as they put your brain into fight or flight, preventing access to higher brain functions of creativity, innovation, collaboration, and connection.
I've got to get a copy of that book. That sounds incredible, because I think it's applicable whether you're a salesperson or you're in another role in any industry, frankly. So,
well, I say everything is sales. Everything is sales. You're selling your brand when you go on an interview. Everything's sales.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about our profession. Why do you think resilience is particularly important for anyone that's in our industry?
The title business, with its quick turn times, intelligent customers who require detailed answers, and the volume of deals, is very stressful. In our personal lives, many have written about the sandwich generation, those professionals taking care of aging parents and adult children who still live at home. Perhaps you have had a cancer diagnosis like I did. I'm cancer free. Please, no worries here. But I share this because you may be wondering, your listeners, why do I care about resilience at all? I did not let that cancer diagnosis derail me. My desire to continue working on my national title professional designation from the American Land Title Association. Heck, at the time, I was president of the Ohio Land Title Association. And about my surgery time, I was to pass the torch to our new president. And I got to tell you, I only told one person that I had had breast cancer surgery 5 days before, just in case I fainted or something dramatic happened.
Jeez.
But I'll tell you this, I didn't want it to be about the illness. I wanted that event to be about the new president and the new key leaders to the association. And you know what? Nothing happened, and it was about them. And that's what mattered to me, because my cancer experience taught me that it's about helping others and being kind in the world. And I don't know who said it, but in my inspirational calendar flip, it said, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about."
Yeah.
All of this backstory, Ann, is to say it's in the valleys is where resilience matters. That was a point made to me by Curtis Huffman, who is ORT leader for the Central Division, where he graciously shared what he thought about resilience to me. And I'm paraphrasing here, but he says it was during the low times that he learned the most about himself and self-reflection. And I absolutely agree with him, specifically about his comment on humility. He said, humility goes a long way in acceptance, right? You've got to accept, self-reflect, and then move forward. Either way, you become a better leader, spouse, parent, human, when you surrender to those valleys and learn the life lessons. My faith is part of my resilience strategy. It is my compass. I think what I would ask your listeners is, what is their compass for resilience?
So many things that you just shared. I'd love to unpack a little bit more, but you talk about self-reflection, having a compass, things like that. What are some practical strategies or habits that you've adopted to help you to build resilience?
Well, of course, the breath technique, so I don't feel overwhelmed. And of course, and that overwhelm can be, you start the day fantastic and 2 emails in, you're now doing the breath techniques, right? That's just the way the world works. You just take it in your stride. But take some time, and I do this in the morning. For me, it's my daily devotion and then reading the Bible to just self-reflect. And then I think about, how am I going to present in the world today and to my team today? So am I going to be a resource, a spirit of gratitude, a joyful laugh, a comforter, a listener? What am I needed to be in the world today to help another person? And that person may be my customer. Of course, exercise is important. I have 2 bad knees, but I walk my dog. I try to go to the gym on the weekend and hit the Nautilus machines. And of course, you're saying to me, but Dione, I don't even have that. I've got the toddler. I've got those teenagers. I'm trying to get out the door. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe it's just the 20 minutes in the shower. Okay? Just make that your best self-reflective 20 minutes possible. And I also continually am educating myself on leadership, emotional intelligence, financial literacy, and staying relevant with technology are other parts of a resilient strategy. And there are some really smart people out there, and we've talked about this, writing books, and they have strategies that you can lean into for different solutions. The library is free. That's a resource I personally use. Really, procrastination is not an excuse. That's all I'm going to say there. I hope I'm not too hard on your listeners.
No. I think so much of what you're sharing with us are things that we've all heard or sometimes even tried to adopt, but then the world, the whirlwind, as I like to call it, takes over, and we forget to breathe. And I think there's no question that developing some of these strategies that can help you to remember the things that will really help you to stay calm and focused and be resilient are really, I think, worth repeating over and over again. While we're on that subject, I think so much of what you're sharing is a great way to help reduce stress. And by reducing our stress level, our resilience probably automatically increases. So, what are some of the things that you like to do to help reduce stress in your daily life?
Well, I believe I've talked about the day to day, but I think what your question is getting at is what do you do with prolonged periods of stress or uncertainty?
Exactly. Mm.
You know, um, I know lots of people who the industry, that's all of their friends. All
Yeah.
of the things they do are in the industry. I don't. I'm in a little Christian band. We play in nursing homes and we raise money for nonprofits. I'm in the handball choir at church. Hey, don't call me Thursday at 5. I'm in the car trying to get to that. It's the one compromise I make with my customers. I'll call them at 8 at night, though. Uh,
Hmm.
but I've got to carve that out. And remember, resilience means carving out some time for you and doing this self reflection.
Exactly.
Um, I know we're going to say that, hey, Dion, you've got tons of time. I don't. I just don't watch that much TV. Okay. And I have a network of people, either my family, which I'm really close to, or my faith community that I know has my back. That
Hmm.
is the strength. And when you reach out to another and you share your vulnerability, sharing a vulnerability takes real courage. If you're courageous enough to do that, you're going to see some relief and you're not carrying that burden by yourself.
Right.
When it's too prolonged, then seeking mental health professional is a great strategy. Finally, I'm aware that some of you may say, but Dion, I'm doing all those things. And you brought this up. I'm meditating, I'm exercising, but life is still kicking my butt. Honestly, it kicks my butt too,
Mm.
right? But what do I have to say about that is I always think of George Leonard's book, Mastery, The Keys to Success and Long-Term Fulfillment. Leonard says you have to work at each skill. And most times we're in the plateau. You're doing the skill and you don't feel you're getting anywhere. But then that moment happens and you have a breakthrough. Any musician, singer, athlete knows what I'm talking about. You're working on a skill, trying to master your instrument, the song, your sport. And Leonard goes on to say that true mastery is knowing that you'll never get to the end because the skills are about refining who you are. It's the journey, the life journey.
Incredible. Incredible. Great. Now I have another book I want to read that you just shared.
Well, I tell you, that book, he does a keto. And, so people in sports, you're going to really just lean into that book, really.
Well, that, and I think, you talked a little bit about music, and to me, music is one of those things that often either lifts me up or calms me down. So I think that that's a great thing to keep in mind when we feel like we're a little stressed out and we need to be a little more resilient with whatever it is that we're faced with. So, anything else you want to share with us before we get to our bottom line?
Oh, sure. So we've talked about the individual. Let's talk about how do we create a resilient mindset for a team.
Oh,
And for that, I'm going to draw on for leaders, our leaders, Patrick Lencioni's The Five Dysfunctions of a Team.
yes, familiar
Oh,
with that.
great read. It starts as fiction. You're just like taken into the story, or you're like, I don't have time for fiction, Dion. Then just go to the last chapter. He
Yeah.
puts out his model right there.
Mhm.
So he says in creating a truly cohesive team, you need 5 things: trust one another, respectfully engage in the unfiltered conflict of ideas, commit to decisions and plans of actions, hold one another accountable for delivering against those plans, and focus on the achievement of the collective result. Transparency, honesty, listening are needed. And, some of my favorite leaders are those who allow me to see their vulnerabilities. I work harder for them. The sharing of experiences helps the entire team.
That is, I think, a great bottom line. It's there's no that I've read that book a few times. I think it's one of those books you can go back to over and over again and always pull a little nugget out of. But Dione, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm so happy that you're healthy and well, as I'm sure our audience is. And I just want to thank you for spending some time with me today and sharing all of this with our audience. And to our audience, until we meet again, we hope you'll all continue to learn, grow, and prosper, and be resilient. Thank you.